Design phase of the handrail. Now you could just go out and buy one and mount it up and be fine with it. But because of all the accent features in this house, I want to tie the staircase into the accent features as well. And if you've seen the channel up to this point, you understand what that means. If not, go look at a previous video. But when I'm custom making a handrail, there's just certain things about the handrail that have always bothered me. And one of it has been these brackets. Now I've custom made my own brackets and mounted them up and been awesome. But for this project, I need to keep the ball rolling. So what we're gonna do is I just bought a basic bracket standoff for a handrail you can get at any major hardware store. And so, you know, with the ways these things mount up, it mounts up underneath. And then you see this little bracket and this little nub. I don't want to see that. So that, seeing how I'm custom making the handrail, let's see if I can figure out a way to hide that. So here's a chunk of an actual 2x4. So I want this to be tucked up in there a little bit so that it hides the bracket too, so that should be fine. So that's, yep, that's about where I want to be. So I need a flat section there to mount the screws to. And then something like that. So then we get rid of that. Yep. Now, I don't think I want that much of a face, but I don't want it too thin either. You want to have some meat here, have the screws go up into. So, curve this like so. Have something to, you know, wrap the hand around. So that feels pretty good. We do that. So let's wrap that like that, that like that. And we'll do something like that. Let me get my eraser. Well, there. What do you think of that? Now we just have to carve all that out of that. And the wall is something like, oh, nope. Got that wrong. So the wall's way over here. So it'll be just like that. You get your hand around it. That's something to be aware of. Some jurisdictions have very specific codes on what this can be. So make sure you look into your local to find out what you can do. I like it. Let's make it a reality. The 2x4 studs that I was planning on using for this, well, none of them are good enough shape in order to pull this project off. So I went out to the sawmill, picked up a couple, and the top plate that we're gonna use for that pony wall upstairs. We'll get into that in a future episode. But here we have 2 2x4s and 1 2x8. Why don't you throw in the comments down below how much you think I just spent? Anyway. Okay. Now the very next step is going to figure out how do we go about making all these cuts in a manner that makes sense so you're not trying to fumble around on the table saw. So I'm thinking the very first thing is let's get it to length. So that's 3 1/4. Where is total length? And then that's just 1 inch. So we have 1 by 1, 1 3/4 by 3/8. Okay. So after we get to the length, what we want to do is make this mill cut here and this one here right after each other. And then we can take this cut and then make this cut. And you want to do it in that sequence so that you're not just relying on this little nub here to balance it as you're trying to cut it. So I've cut the pieces to length of what I want for all the different components. And it got me thinking that the thickness of these rough cut 2x4s are going to be critical on how the pieces join together. So I figured out the thinnest one that I have is 1 3/4 inches. And the thickest is 1 7/8 inches. So I'm gonna mill everything down to 1 3/4 first. That way everything is a nice smooth transition at all the different components. So there's a bit I'm going for. This little cove bit. Managed to cut the bearing land off. And we're gonna give it a shot. I don't know that it's gonna work, but I'm gonna try it anyway. All right, so there's our profile so far. Now, we need to work on rounding all these harsh edges over. And the way you do that, for this operation, I'm going to do just the handheld trim router because I can really see what I'm doing with this little guy compared to the mid-size router. I can't quite see exactly where it is. So I'm gonna do this and then I'll get back with you. Surrounding the top edges were really quite simple with just the trim router. But then getting this inside cove to round over more, that wasn't gonna happen with that trim router. So I just fed it through the table saw, put the table saw at a 45, and yeah, rounded that over pretty nicely. Feels good in the hand. It's a slightly sharp edge, but that could get taken care of with a sander. So we got to sand the whole thing anyway. And then I did the same thing. I put a 45 on this little lip here, which left a little bit of leftover because I'm using a V-notched blade on that table saw. If I had a square cut blade, that wouldn't happen. I don't have one of those, and I can't buy those locally. So, do the best we can with what we have. So I think it's time to sand all this stuff up. Let's do that. Good morning. These are turning out beautifully. When I put the poly on this, I decided to go with the oil base that we used on the floor. Because handrails, well, they take a bit of abuse, and I used a soft wood for the handrail instead of a hard. So I wanted a poly that can really harden the surface, and this oil base does a great job of that. And I did a little trick, and that is I tinted the poly with a little bit of the floor stain as well. And what that'll do is it'll give you a little more depth of field. Just make sure you're using an oil base. I've never used a water-based stain. I don't think I have. Anyway, I digress. During the sanding process, there were a few spots that were a little bit lighter than I liked, so I decided to tint it, and I wanted to see if I can get that kind of a, not really three-dimensional, but it gives you a little more depth, is what I'm trying to say. So, we're going to give this one more coat after sanding, and then tomorrow we should be able to install these. Hold my hand, I'm gonna love you the best that I can. They'll want to tuck you in at night, and if you find me, you can guarantee won't find nobody else like me. So we made all these components, right? But now I need to figure out how to connect them together. Let me show you the process I'm using. How do you make the joint connection? Well, remember the nail polish from the bathroom video? It's back. So you just take a dab of that and put it somewhere in the middle. You want to have enough on there that it's built up, but not enough to run, because you want a precise location. So there you go there. Now I'll put my fingers on here to help guide this in, because you don't want to wiggle it around in there. Get my top set, my face set. Roll it down in, hold it for just a moment, gently lift it out, and there's that pink dot. Let's go ahead and drill this one first. Now you want that deep enough so you have some room for the glue to get pushed in, because it's going to get air trapped. So like so. Goes in there like so. And like that. I like to scrape the glue in on the bottom, leaving the top alone so that air can escape while pushing it all together. And having some glue on the peg. Yeah, just like that. Take the excess, smear it on the peg. Smear it across the entire face. Get some glue on the receiving side. Really get that glue in there. I oblong the hole a little bit, so it's going to be a little sloppy. So I want it to be as filled with glue as possible, so we can get this to, fill up the void that we created. Now in a perfect world, I'd stand here and hold this until it dried. But you know, that's just not going to happen. So we'll employ Mr. 23 gauge here. Putting all the pressure on it that I want. Just take a damp rag, wipe off all the excess glue. Why are you hiding?
From the camera.
From the camera, huh? Okay, so first thing we need to do is sand this up a little bit. So just real lightly, okay? Not too far, not too far. Because the more we sand, the more we have to poly. We only need to poly from about there to there. Okay, so not very far.
Okay.
Okay, let's see how you did. Okay, it's super hard to see. But you see this run right here? Where it's really thick right there? And these thick spots here and here. So what we do is we're going to take the brush, turn it a little bit, and then real slowly sweep it through. Can we finish the stroke? Okay.
So like.
But you always start at one end.
Oh.
Okay.
So like this.
Yep, and then slowly, nice and slow. Yeah, when you just push it down hard like that, when the bristles do that, it doesn't actually fan out. So you can put more bristles in contact. Okay? Yeah, when you're doing layers of poly, what can happen is the poly will actually reject anything that's wet.
What does reject mean?
Means it does not want it on it. So when you have those dry, streaky spots, like that, that's just the poly fighting you a little bit, so you just have to go over it a couple more times. And you just gotta convince it that, yeah, you want another coat.
Why is there cardboard on the stairs?
To protect the work that I did.
I didn't know there could be pink cardboard.
No way. There can be any color cardboard.
There can?
Sure.
I thought there could just be brown.
Oh no. Just be careful on those because they're loose.
Yeah.
We're ready to hang these handrails. So now what I need to do is know what the total height of where the top of the handrail lives. So we have the drawing that we made. We take our bracket, nestle it in right where it's going to be, put a line down here and a tick mark at the bottom here to know where the bottom of this bracket is. Take your speed square, square it up on the mark you made here, put a line across the bottom. So we have this line here. Measure from the line to the top of the handrail and you have your measurement. This one is 5 inches. Now I'm going to fiddle around with this laser. I have it mounted to my camera tripod, which is why I'm holding you. And what I want to do is take that 5-inch measurement and subtract it from the ADA, which is 34 to 38 inches. So I want to hit 36 inches. So 36 minus 5 is going to be 31. So I want to set this line to 31 inches. And then we can find the studs so that we can put the brackets on. Well, she wasn't the easiest thing to get up there, but clearly it's up there. It's attached, it's nice and strong, and I'm good to go there. Now the very next step is going to be installing the return, which is this little guy right here. Right? So the way I like to look at these, a couple of things I'm concerned about. One, at the miter joint, can you see any of this wood grain? And the easiest thing that I've found on any of the surfaces that are pointed towards the direction of travel, so what you can physically see, just take a black magic marker and go around. Right. Look at the cut on the handrail itself and have a look. See if there's any sort of blowout or anything like that. Now we just put a brand new blade on the chop saw, so there shouldn't be any issues. The other thing I'm looking at is this surface. Did any of the poly, or if you stained or whatever you did it roll over this while you're doing that process and dry it on there? If it did, what you do is simply take the blade from a utility knife, put it flat across the cut surface, and scrape. That's also a good way to remove any sort of sawdust or dust or whatever that's on there. Now, if you're doing this at home and you happen to have someone that can help you, I really recommend building the whole handrail before you put your poly or stain or anything like that on there. Pre-assemble it and then pull it off, and then you can get absolutely perfect joints on your miter and on your transition pieces, and it becomes absolutely seamless. So if you have that opportunity, take advantage of it. As a one-man show, a super long handrail, I'm not gonna be able to do that. I mean, as it is, my milling was pretty spot on, so I'm not too concerned. But anyway, now I'm just applying a little bit of PL glue. You can do, wood glue or CA, whatever you got. You do you, boo. So I set the outside of the corner in first. I'm gonna roll it in. Nice and slow. I want it to spread that PL glue around. And that stuff doesn't move terribly fast, so just take your time. Even it all out. So if there's any variation in your mill work, you want to kind of split the differences. Okay. Now I'm going to take a 23 gauge pin nailer just to hold it here. Then later we can come back with a finish gun and really make it rock solid. But that PL glue really should do the trick. What I like about the pin nailer is that you don't really see them. They're very, very small. And they're not very impactful, meaning it won't jostle it really hard and throw off your alignment. Got a little bit of PL glue on there. This stuff is awful. Yeah, there you go. It's the little things that really set you apart from other people. And to me, the chances are no one's going to appreciate this handrail as much as I do. 99% of the time, I don't ever use a handrail. I'm usually running upstairs 2, 3 at a time, but I can appreciate one when I need one. As I get older, I definitely find myself doing it a little more frequently. You get tired at the end of the day. And having a nice sturdy handrail that is all there and smooth and soft. Man, it's the first time I used a floor poly on a handrail, and I'm a fan. It is a much different feel than a polyacrylic. It's 100% oil-based, blah, blah. I'm talking way too much, aren't I, about a handrail? Probably. But I spent a lot of time on it. I appreciate it. All right. So, I guess I can't really direct you anywhere in this video. Handrail's a handrail. Except that what is directly next to you, which is the pony wall, I've put the cap on it. It is all finished. And it has really, really tied the room together. So if you want to see how that turned out, you know the routine. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, do all those things, and YouTube will let you know that another video is dropped. And that wall cap will be the next video. Thank you for stopping by. Hi, peace out.